Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. No mai haere mai ki te zui. Welcome to our Zoom hui today, where I'm going to be taking you through the process of submitting your RS7. Me mahi tahi tātou mō te oranga o te katoa. We should work together for the well-being of everybody, which is what early childhood is all about. So thank you again for your time. Sit back, relax, and let's get started. Great, so we're going to be looking at submitting the RS7 in the new look version today. Now, the difference between the new look and the old look is that things have been moved around, but simply the core function is the same in both versions. So what we're going to do is look at going through the process. We're going to be looking at the centre calendar, we're going to be looking at discretionary hours, all of those sorts of things throughout the session today. So once you think that you're ready to submit your RS7, you've done your sign-in sheets and your staff timesheets for the whole funding period, with the exception of home-based not needing staff timesheets. Come here to Reports, come down to MOE Reports and select RS7 Return Funding. Now, when you come into this screen, it automatically sets you for the funding hours and brings you up to the current funding period. So it's March 2022 because that's the actual payment date. Now, if we just skip across to the old look temporarily by toggling in the try new look, you'll notice too it's selected for funding hours. So that is the default when you first come into the screen. Helpful information. So what you need to do is make sure that you've updated your centre calendars for the previous months and the coming months as well for your advanced funding to be correct. Remembering that here at InfoCare, we populate national public holidays. It's your responsibility to update any other closures, for example, regional public holidays. For example, on the 31st of January is Auckland anniversary, but if we skip ahead to February, for example, Waitangi Day is observed by the whole country, so we've done that in there for you. So make sure your centre calendar is up to date for previous and coming. When we come back to actually just more on the centre calendar, of course, is that over the COVID closures and things like that during the October to January period, you will have needed to have updated your centre calendar for different scenarios depending on where you were. Now, the information, if you come to InfoCare Solutions, one of the things you can do is come here to our resources and come here to our news and information. This is where you can find different publications we've sent throughout the COVID period and what you need to do in your centre calendar. And it's specific for your service, so you can find the information there. Another key thing that's really important to stay abreast is the ministry's pānui. So if we just Google ministry pānui, I think it's, pānui, let's see what we get. Here we go, this is exactly what you need as well. We've got it saved as a shortcut to stay abreast of the information, but this is where you can come back and find previous publications that the ministry have sent about EC12 exemptions and everything along those lines. So that's where you can come to get that information from the ministry. And then our step-by-steps are here at our InfoCare Solutions website. Great, okay, so that's all about your centre calendar. The next thing that you need to ensure that you've done, like I mentioned at the beginning, is making sure that you've got child daily sign-in sheets for every day that you're claiming funding for, and also staff timesheets with the exception of home-based services. You also need to make sure that you've been across and maintained your frequent absence reports. The frequent absence rules, not the 3-week rule. The frequent absence rules were reset as month 1 from October. For services that were open and operating under Alert Level 2, of course, would have been monitoring your frequent absences, with October being month 1, November month 2, December month 3. So there is the potential for children to have broken a frequent absence rule for the 4th month in January. So it's your role to keep your eye on your frequent absence reports. And of course, if it didn't apply for that month, it will come up with a message. Let's have a look. So if we come to reports, child reports and come down to our frequent absence here, if the period was exempt because you had an EC12 exemption, when you go to review your frequent absence report, you'll be given a message to say that there were no children who broke the frequent absence report. Let's skip ahead to January, which would be month 1 in that instance. When you review your frequent absence report, of course, you want to be looking at those that affect your funding. So when it comes to the use MOE best practice, you select no, because we just want to review those that affect your funding. So then, of course, on your frequent absence report, you can see how I've broken the absence rules and do the things that you need to do that are outlined in the Ministry of Education's funding handbook. So once you have reviewed your frequent absence report and made sure that you're not entitled to, not claiming funding when you're not entitled to, etc., then you can come through the process of reports, MOE reports, RS7 return again. Now that we've got our funding hours, we've done our other checks, I'm just going to click print there because I have created a problem for the purposes of you being able to see what a problem can look like. So we've got the message here, cells highlighted in orange indicate missing information. So when we're reviewing the funding hours report, this is quite simply the number of hours worth of funding that you're claiming for each of the funding rates here. And it's also looking at the funding hours, how many hours were registered and how many hours were unregistered. To see who makes up those numbers, you can simply click on the day, and that will bring up the information about the children and about the staff that day. What I'm doing is looking out for where my orange problem is. So scrolling through, we can see that the problem is here. It's highlighted in orange because I don't have a staff timesheet for the 20th of January. So just going through to our favourites, and I'm coming to timesheets. And I want the 20th of January, none created. What I'm going to do is select day, change this to be 20th, search, create, perfect, and we are done. So now when we come through to our reports, MOE, RS7 return, we're very practiced at that now. When we click print, of course, there's no error message, it's happy. So now let's go through to submit the RS7. Great, clicking continue. As you can see, once again, no messages came up. You're presented with your funded child hours and your staff hour count data. So we're simply scrolling down the screen. What you'll notice too down the bottom here is that there are the discretionary hours. If you have used discretionary hours throughout this funding period, you do actually need to submit a table, but that's done for you directly from InfoCare. There's nothing else you need to do. You've got your advanced days to review. Now this is of course taken from your centre calendar as well. Once you're happy with the information, click continue. Now, this is the attestation of certificated teachers' salaries. You need to select what is specific for your service, whether or not the answer is yes, or whether or not the answer is no. And then click continue. This is about the teachers' parity. So this is if you're opting in for pay parity. With this section here, this is how you're telling the ministry whether you are opting in or not for the teachers' parities. Now, after we've gone through the process of submitting the RS7, we're going to look at how to tell InfoCare that you've opted in for pay parity. So the correct funding rates show on your funding summary report. So reviewing the information and making the selection specific for your centre, and then clicking continue. Got a declaration here which you need to read through, and once you're happy to proceed, entering in your name, telephone number and job title. Are you ready to submit your RS7 to the MOE? We simply click yes. So this is telling you that you have submitted your RS7 to the ministry, and you can opt at this point in time to print a copy if you would like, or you can simply click finish. We often have questions, how do I know if my RS7 has been submitted? So the ministry published to say that they will email you within 3 business days to say that they have received your RS7. The other way that you can check is you come to Utilities, come down to File Download. Then within here, you can see we've got RS7 return for March 2022, submitted on the 21st of January at 9:41. And you will see that, of course, that's a file you can't delete. It's stored within InfoCare for you to review at any time or print off. I mentioned a moment ago about the pay parity and telling InfoCare that you opt in. When you come to reports, MOE reports, and the RS7 return, within here, you've got your funding summary report. Now, if you put in your advanced funds into InfoCare, what you can do is rely on this report for accurate information about how much funding you will receive. So when we click print here, what it does is, of course, you've got your advanced funds that you populate when you've got the notification from the ministry, what you're actually entitled to claim, and what the actual wash-up is. The anomaly with this funding period is that the ministry have published that they are not going to claw back the negative wash-up. They are going to reimburse you. So for any periods that you were advanced too many funded child hours, they will reimburse that to you. So that's an anomaly with this funding period, and we can't capture that on this report. If we wanted to tell this report that we've opted in for pay parity, for example, so the correct rates display, when you come up here to Centre and come here to funding rates, what you can do is modify the 1st of January, or if you've opted in from a different date, you can add a funding rate table from the date that you've opted in for pay parity. When you come into here, you can see that you've got base funding rates and pay parity rates. So to let InfoCare know, you'd select opt-in for pay parity rates and click update, and those corrected rates will be displayed on your funding summary report. And you can see it's highlighted there as well. So thank you, team. Take care, and hey, corner.